Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your time and interest. My first project completed for 2019. It's a Maschinen Krieger Rapoon with a stealth Night Ops themed original custom colorway and scratch built vignette display base. For those of you new to my work, welcome and I hope you like it. My name is Lincoln Wright and I worked as a studio artist for this property in Tokyo along with others for kit makers and hobby publications. I hope to help you with your journey in our craft and empower you with my tutorials. Here's an overview of the steps I'd like to cover with you in this video. Let's cover painting the cockpit with custom colors and adding details to bring our finish to life. Hey guys, painting now the inside of the Rapoon, and I wanted to show you how I mixed up a color that I don't currently have. As part of my collection in Japan, I would often use a Vallejo model color called English Uniform. And I found or felt it was perfect for the base color for some of the leather effects, like the padding that would go in these SAFS suits. Now, not having access to it, I've got some of these colors, and I was able to make it here. It's separated a little bit, but here was the recipe, and I think this will be very useful for the future. In fact, I was going to buy some English Uniform, but now I won't, because I think we can make it pretty easy. The recipe was, very simply, around my palette, I've got, I don't think I can get it all in shot at once. So I'll show you, I've got the Maschinen white over here. Then I've got Vallejo dark sea blue up here. And then model color black underneath it. And I've mixed them up into, say, 50-50 mix there. Then coming over here, I kept the game colors separate, just to keep it nice and organized. I've got moon yellow up the top. I've got desert yellow under there, and these are going to be two of my mixes I'm going to use for detail. I'll show you in a minute. And then I've got the Vallejo name is Beastie Brown. And way back when, I think that was called Scorched Brown, and as you can see, it's quite a it's a red brown, which was not quite right. This is a cool toned suit. I wanted to keep everything reasonably cool, so I've simply mixed the blue black into there, and it's produced a very awesome color, which is, I think it's very close to English Uniform, and I can adjust it either way. If I want it to be warmer, I can add more of these colors, because they're all quite similar tones. If I need to darken it up again or thicken it up, I can simply add that color. And this is how it turned out on the inside of the suit. So I'll put that as the base for the leather. I'm going to paint it into the leather padding around the suit in here. And I've got it mixed about, say, it's reasonably thin. And as we were talking in Discord just a few moments ago, so you guys were asking whether you flat paint things and add the lines in the panel lining afterwards, or leave it. I'm a big fan of leaving it wherever possible. Here, I will try to leave the grey. I like the idea of imposing on myself. Now this might sound a little odd, but you know, I've read a lot of, I said it in my mind, so I know it's going to be a bit odd. I've read a lot of the Stoicism, or at least stuff talking about similar things to Stoicism, about, you know, developing self-discipline. And I think one of the wonderful things about our painting hobby is that we can develop wonderful self-discipline through performing, you know, difficult, but they're not tasks full of hardship. I was just explaining hardship to my little girl a few minutes ago. And as an example, I gave her one that I don't think she could quite follow. I said, you know, carrying a sandbag on either shoulder as a 17-year-old kid when you weigh like 60-something kilograms uphill until you can't hold on to breakfast anymore. That's hardship. Moving around acrylic water-based paints by a brush is not particularly what I put up there as hardship. Right, in leaving the grey behind, that's the armour. In my mind, I've got that set out as the armour, the metallic painted sections in here. So leaving them in, it just saves me work. By being disciplined, you know, exercising different kinds of discipline can actually increase the amount of freedom we have. Because, you know, freedom from masking, freedom to having to repaint things. Yes, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, but they do match up too. It's looking okay. Now I'll come back. I'll need to give this a couple of coats. I guesstimate this is going to take 2 to 3 coats to get up to a decent amount of... I've over-thinned the paint slightly, so I'll need to let that both evaporate and build up some intensity there. So I need to mix up a little bit more of my... Is it my poor man or my rich man? I feel rich being able to do it, but not having to buy the paint saves me $5. But I'm going to show you once again how I made up my version of English uniform. So I'm mixing in a blue-black mix here, and you can see once that strikes the yellow, see the yellow and black with paint makes green. See how that turned green already? I'm mixing some of this in. Watch it change. Look at that. I almost feel like it's magic, isn't it? Changes from a warm red-brown to boom. That's dead on. A slightly darker shade perhaps, but that's dead on for an English uniform. But English uniform, it really was a green umber shade. If I can get all Bob Ross for a minute, it's a wonderful green umber shade. Whatever, we'll keep him happy. I'll continue on doing my base coats with that wonderful color. Now let's go around and add some variants to different places on our model and hand pick it out with hand painted acrylics. As a quick example, I've got the leather in here. I've gone around the outside inside lip. It's just difficult to get with the airbrush in there, but very easy to hand paint. But what I've done is, using one of our tones here, the dark sea blue. It's a perfect all-around color here. It's not important, the particular color is not what makes it important. It's using it strategically so that the tones will match around the model. So now you can see the inside and the outside look quite different. And what I plan to do now is make mixes of both the straight dark sea blue with black, and dark sea blue with white, so that they're quite similar and they'll still match up with our colors here. And go around and paint in some of the panels. Excuse me, this one will be easier to see. So I often like to pick out this panel as being different. It's not super important, there's nothing special about this panel, but they're light on details, these Maschinen Krieger kits. So we've also got to kind of take our opportunities when we can. Now I need a little bit more water here. So I want to turn it into a nice base coat. There we go. So about a 50-50 water paint ratio. And again here. Now as you'll see as it finishes up, it'll be an ever so slightly different tone. Now the model has been satin finished, so it's a little slippery, and I'll simply, before I get to the decals, I wanted to add these extra details. So once this dries off quick, I'll hand paint on some satin varnish. Yeah, so this is darker and it's an ever so slightly different tone, so it won't be garishly, painfully different. It should be just enough to make it look interesting. The paint's separated a little bit here, which I hope that's okay. Vagaries of sitting on the model for too long maybe. I'm not sure I'll like that, so I'll mix it in now. Trying to produce a more even tone here on the panel. I can come back once more too, but that'll dry and I think that'll look pretty cool. I'm going to add another one of them I thought about going lighter, but no, I'll stay dark like that. We'll add another one here. So I want this suit to look pretty new. I often beat the heck out of stuff because it's fun, but so I want this guy pretty new, but still dirty and interesting. We'll see how that look goes. I'll tell you a secret too. I think it makes it more generally appealing. Sometimes if the finishes get too detailed, they only appeal to a certain segment of us. That's okay. People are never wrong. We like what we like. Gosh, that's a nice color, isn't it? You know it's right when you geek out on it yourself. In fact, I'm gonna add more of them. I want brighter ones up here. Maybe this support up under here. It's quite a boring spot on the model, so let's liven it up. That should contrast. This is pretty wet and the brush is very heavily loaded. And pretty loaded, you might want to put your seatbelts on. Again, that was one of those gags that if we were all together, if you and me were together, it'd be funny. This spot, I'm pretty happy with that. See how that panel is different? See how the panel's nice and bright? I did that just with the airbrush, no masking. Just kind of a bit of a practice thing as I was moving along. Okay, they should dry off pretty quick. Almost dry. And that will look very nifty. Give our model a little bit of life. A little bit more life. In the world of Maschinen Krieger, these are very difficult to get right because I can't have it compete with the ID band. But the historical, the most traditional color for them is a red brown, which is nice in between mark. But I want to add some green, night vision goggle effects to the pilot. So green, red, yellow is just too much for one suit. The model's not big enough to carry it, and I prefer to work with a limited color palette. So I've gone with this color instead of the traditional orange brown. And the orange brown is, most of the time it's a straight Mr. Color brown. I'll paint it on, and you can highlight it with white for effect. With this one, I've gone with, these are all Vallejo game colors. This one's dark yellow. Is it desert yellow? So I better show you the bottle just in case I'm getting it wrong. Desert yellow. Mixed with a little bit of their moon yellow, which is probably the closest they've got to flat yellow in this range. And I think it's better to paint it on in a series of steps. We can use, I looked at one of the closest colors for a base because the desert yellow doesn't have very good coverage capacity. So the light's really blowing that out. Leather brown. Tone wise, you can see it's quite close. It is slightly more red, but for the base we can kind of forgive that. And I put it on in layered up coats of dirty water. Can't go on too thick. And I think this is one of the better ways to do it. So where's a good one to show you from? Let's go with this corner up here. And because we're going over grey, it's not far from black. Again, I'll try to be neat and tidy with this step. It's simply down to brush control and layering on these colors. And of course, because they're cool colors, they don't cover worth a you know what. Because they're all quite yellow. Yeah, they don't cover well. They smell fantastic though, which is nice. And if we try to go too thick, instantly it doesn't work because we get unwanted textures. They dry really quick, so that's all good. Try one more on this side. Now for the future, this is a good color to remember. I think it could also work for us, for this kind of detail. Just a little tedious. This was the cool thing about doing this in lacquer paints. I think it was just one coat. It was boom. But it's, at times, it's horrendous stuff. It's toxic. Tabs is on holiday and sitting close behind me. Family are right here. It's not the time to be dropping toxic bombs on them, right? But showing it in the world's, one of the world's easiest to get hobby paints. Probably not a bad idea. It's fun too to get back on the old Valleos. Hey, while I'm plugging along this, tell you some funny stories. This is for sure something good to share in the live stream format. Talking with Alex Vallejo of Vallejo Paints. So I found out for sure. I asked him, come on, what's your title? Because he doesn't put it on anything, which always leads you to believe that he's the head honcho. It's got to be, right? And yes, he is. So he's the owner and the recipient of the company. I didn't ask how many generations, but judging by his age, I'd say he'd be a third generation Vallejo running the company. So a bit of pressure there on the poor guy. And you could imagine AK and Ammo, the other guys are really pumping out their marketing. And Vallejo's never been that flashy. Heaven forbid, they've kind of focused on making really good products. For shame, right? And he mentioned, I said, how do you want me when I represent your brand, if I show it in content, and I'm probably going to do some tutorial videos for them. I said, how do you want me to say it? And he said, well, you're going to be speaking to English speakers. Please say it how English speakers say it. And I joked with him. I said, you know, I'm not the best representative of English speakers, so, you know, just fair warning. Here's the base coat. You can see it's quite a bit darker. So he says, so of course in Spanish, our Spanish friends could tell us when he said it himself, pardon my pronunciation, it's not accurate, but he said Vallejo. That's how it sounded, Vallejo. So I'm pretty sure that was it. Because there are a lot of versions came up, and he says, but don't use that. All right. He said, say it like English speakers do. Please say Vallecio. And then during the rest of the conversation, he kept saying Vallecio. And, you know, he's the boss. It's his company and his name. I didn't have the heart to say, dude, we don't say that. I have never heard it called Vallecio. And, you know, I've been aware of the brand for maybe 15 odd years. This is Desert Yellow. I have never once, besides Alex saying it himself, heard the brand called Vallecio. I don't even know how they get that. During the conversation, I did have the opportunity to kind of mention, I mostly hear it called Vallejo by English speakers, and in Japan they call it Fareho, for real. And I believe that's Volks doing. Volks, if you've been to their shop there in Akiba, they're their distributor there. Distributor slash self-selling dudes. Because they don't distribute to any other shops, they only flog the stuff themselves. So yeah, that was really, really bizarre. So I just know when the poor guys on their media now, they don't speak, so maybe they're smart. They've just got everything in text. I'm thinking that might actually even be the better way to go, because no matter which version I say, I think I'm gonna get beat up by the interwebs. Dude, you're saying it wrong. Because if I try to say it in Spanish, it won't sound right. Don't have the right accent. If I try to say it in the most common English way, suddenly those Valesio guys are gonna... Valesio. I think he said it even with an SH. They're all gonna pipe up. If I say it Japanese way, it sounds too wrong. So yeah, there's all kinds of fail with that one. So the main reason I'm telling you is that we're gonna have a lot of laughs out of this. To me, this is not a complaint. This is hilarious to me. This is comedy gold we're building right now. So I could I could change and you know, mess with it. Like, I don't want to, but it's just too funny. Because, you know, there's only really one pronunciation. It's the correct Spanish pronunciation, is the correct pronunciation, but, you know, they forgive us idiot English speakers, allow for a different version, but then the one the boss guy is telling me to use doesn't sound right to me, and I have never heard an English speaker use it. So all kinds of comedy gold are going to ensue. But you guys watch. No matter what I do or say, there's going to be people, even though it's going to be the first voice on their channel, people are going to get all upset and bent out of shape with me. And laughs will ensue. So remember, even on the Ammo channel, some guys were beating me up about it. You're saying Mig's name wrong. So dude, he can't say my name right. So fair's fair. So that will be fun. So this is thickening up. I remember way back in the day, I think I painted up some Starship Troopers by Gale Force 9 miniatures with this paint. And they had some pretty cool stuff. And I remember it was certainly a labor of love. But it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. A desaturated yellow based tone. It's perfect for this. And we got it in a non-toxic, easily available form. So I think this will be a big hit around the Maschinen Krieger world. Now for the final touch, the piece de resistance, you can see top is quite bright compared to there. I have prepared a 50-50 mix of the yellow, desert yellow, and a touch of the Schminke white went into this to produce this lovely tone. So right at the end, it is custom mixed. And you can see that it's quite different. It livens it up quite a bit. And that's what we want. And that brings it back together, makes it very close to our ID tone. Now you hear me talk about these tones a lot. They are important. Our eye sees it. We know if the colors are related or not. It makes us happy if we see that the colors are nicely related. Just as it kind of makes us confused and sad if they're not. This one doesn't need to be super coverage. It's more like a highlight. Boom. And I'll come back in and have a nice close look at it, but that looks fantastical. And let's, sorry, that just ruined my audio recording. Because that maxes everything out and I'll have to cut it out. Idiot Lincoln. Tomoe was laughing when I call up Vallejo. When I say my name, I say Lincoln, and they go, what? And I have to say Lincoln. And then I can hear Tomoe in the background going, because that's the only way they kind of get my name close to right. Lincoln. Check it out. Aisho ga ii. That means it matches up pretty well. I want it to be close, but not a dominant feature. And we're looking pretty good. You know, I'm getting pretty happy. It's looking good, isn't it? Indeedy. Okay, I'm gonna flesh that out and fix it up in a handful more places now, just to make sure we're looking good. Might share some snaps with you guys too. So get prepared with gush, even though you don't know it's coming, because you won't see this until the future. Coolness. Oh, check it out. Just while I've got this in shot, just kind of, I want to throw this out for you. I tested blasting on. That's Lucky Varnish Satin, blasted, except for that's become matte again because of the model color. That's Lucky Gloss, blasted on. Now, I've heard quite a few people complain that it's weak sauce, but nah, you just blast it on. Worked fine. Check it out, and it's nice, it's hard, it's good. So just some extra product know-how. Those Lucky Varnishes are fine, just blast them on. But between you and me, I'm not going to say this publicly, going by the smell and the consistency and messing about, I believe those Lucky Shot varnishes, I believe that they're Vallejo varnishes, just mixed up with airbrush thinner to make them ready to use. Because they look and mix up and smell pretty much dead on for Vallejo. That's just, let's keep that between us though, okay? Now having our palette set up like this takes a lot of the guesswork out of choosing our colors later. I mean, they're basically decided for us and then we just need to follow along. But it was getting to those colors that was the hard work. You can see they're working together. Now this will be set up over the hatch like this. So I've highlighted the leather. Could be a little heavy-handed. I'm going to do some weathering in there as well, but that's basically the look I'm going for, that kind of angle. So you can see that it is highlighted above here. Now very simply, I've used the same colors. I'm going to switch down to a flat brush. I actually used it before. I was reading a little bit in Discord just now that Tweets and Kevin were talking about using flat brushes and pointy brushes. They're both good. They're brushes. For something like this, I do like a flat brush. I've got a small Tamiya HF series flat brush, and what I'm going to do is, with those colors that we've sent out previously, there's my English uniform, sort of dark leathery sort of color that I mixed together, and all I've done is mixed in my other tones to make another tone here. So it's so hot and dry here today that I think I'm actually, there we go, I've still got some life in it. Even my wet palette is drying up a little. Now just subtle. I need it on the back here and a couple of little places like this, dragging it over the highlighted area. And very subtle. The trick or technique, the truth, with working with acrylics like this is many thin layers. They just build up over time. You can go harder, but it just never seems to really work. Many thin layers work to the strength of the paint. These paints, they thin well and they dry super quick. So come back, another layer. From what I can see, the guys who are super good at very small miniature painting, they work with millions of layers. And if it gets too rough looking, we can come back and glaze in our previous color. Go for a little bit of brightness. Now to keep it working together, that's my desert yellow. And here's my desert yellow mix. Let's go for a little bit of this one. Brighten it up, one tone. There's no magic or set numbers to this as far as I'm concerned. We just need to eyeball it. Rather than give you ratios, I think this is a get in and practice sort of thing. Because it's just not wrong. It's how you feel in that moment and what you like. Some of us are more comfortable with adding more contrast. Over time, I've become more brave with adding contrast. So my ratios may not work for you at this stage in your journey to happy painting. There we go. I like that a lot. And once our pilot head is in there, it takes up a lot of this important real estate. I'm going to go a little bit brighter again. There you go. Sorry I can't keep it all in focus. It is a little bit tough. The really pro dudes have got their 2 camera systems. That's something we can work up to in the future. Does add a great deal of complexity. Now this one does look a little bright. So hopefully I can have an opportunity to show you working that back a little bit. Cool. There we go, up the front here. Get a bit of an edge highlight happening in here. Cool. So the roughness looks pretty nifty, but I'm gonna do a glaze back in anyway. Probably don't need to. So a little bit more water on the brush. Come back to the darker color we had here originally, and I'll work it back using the flat of the brush. If the paint's still a little bit wet, it becomes a wet on wet blend that you'll often hear about. But even if it's not, we're all good. What this does is just re-establishes some of the previous color, blends it back in over the top like this. Smooths out transitions. Cool. And once we get our little dude's brain bucket in there, that will add a nice backdrop to him. See, we're looking good. I'll continue that around this side. I need to kind of get a little bit away from the camera. Being mostly right-handed, I find it easy to shoot in this direction. Once we've got all of this finished up, we'll get going on the helmet. Next, let's paint up the figure. Add the night vision goggles with OSL object source lighting and get started on the weathering. Hope you're enjoying this series as much as I am. More soon. Bye for now. Thanks guys. Come check out and join in our Macross group build as well. Big thanks to Hobbyco and Little Robot. I do my best to buy from and support local businesses to keep our money in our communities and to empower physical events. I get to meet you guys and hang out. Fun. Please allow me a moment to thank the very special people who are our top supporters. Ivan, MB, Grant, Con, Jack, RJ, Mr. Tweets, Robert, Kelso, Kevin, David, Derek, and let's welcome Matthias, Dominic, Peter, and Nicholas. This episode was supported by you. Your support empowers me and makes all this happen. Sincerely, thank you very much guys. More soon.